I've already dealt with the false idea that there was no second floor encounter, but people will also argue that there was a first floor encounter. Usually these people are also the second floor encounter deniers, though not always. And so I'm going to deal with the idea that there was an encounter between Oswald and Truly Baker on the first floor. This doesn't come from most of the evidence they have for this comes from two newspaper articles that I'm aware of that quote O.V. Campbell, the vice president of the Texas School Book Depository. Both of these pieces I have seen on the Prayerman site, and I've seen them elsewhere, but I think the Prayerman site put them on the internet in the form that I have them because they often will highlight in green like this. Now I'm going to read the paragraph before the green highlighted area and the green highlighted area. O.V. Campbell, vice president of the firm, said that he and Truly, superintendent of the firm, were standing in front of the building at 411 Elm when the shooting started. Campbell said he ran toward a grassy knoll west of the building where he thought the sniper had hidden. He said Truly and an officer ran into the building. In a storage room on the first floor, the officer, gun drawn, spotted Oswald. "Does this man work here?" the officer reportedly asked Truly. So we should note here that Campbell did not see this encounter. Campbell said he ran to the grassy knoll. So he is reporting a hearsay account that presumably he heard from Roy Truly. So hearsay is not as strong as first-person accounts because it's very easy to misunderstand things. But clearly, that's what he's saying. He didn't see Oswald on the first floor. Presumably, he's saying that Truly did. Now, going to this FBI document from November 26th, primarily it's a report of an interview with O.V. Campbell, but they don't talk to O.V. Campbell about this first floor encounter. But in this document, Roy Truly is reported to have said that he was in company with Mr. Campbell on November 22nd, 1963, at the time of the motorcade of President Kennedy passed in front of the TSPD. He stated that immediately after the shooting, at that time he and Mr. Campbell apparently became separated by the surging crowd, and therefore he would not be able to comment regarding any persons observed by Mr. Campbell at the time. Now, in the context of this report, they mean Howard Brennan. But note that Truly says he can't comment on what Campbell saw, and that confirms that they were not together, even though Campbell, for some reason, decided to comment on what Truly saw. So they're not together when this first floor encounter allegedly happens. Now, this is the other article they use, and they like this one because it removes some of the context. That is, it implies that Campbell himself saw the Oswald encounter on the first floor. Bogus V. Campbell, vice president of the textbook firm, said Oswald's duties were to fill orders and wrap books, and that the sixth floor of the seventh-story building would have been easily accessible to Oswald. Mr. Campbell said shortly after the shooting, "We raced back into the building. We had been outside watching the parade. We saw him, Oswald, in a small storage room on the ground floor. Then we noticed he was gone." So, even though Campbell is using the word "we," in the context of what we just read, he obviously does not mean himself personally. He's using "we" to say Mr. Truly. He's talking with the company "we." We, the Texas School Book Depository, saw this first floor encounter. But the people who liked the first floor encounter like this a lot because it makes it sound more credible, because apparently Campbell, if you don't know the context, he's saying that he saw Oswald on the first floor. But we know the context, don't we? So that's not what he's saying here. This adds nothing to the first article, but they like to repeat it as if it reinforces their case, and it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything at all, really. It's just a hearsay account of what Truly saw, and we have the first-hand account of Baker. So the people who want the first floor encounter want you to believe these hearsay accounts that appear in the newspaper, which are stated to be hearsay accounts. They want you to believe that over first-person accounts. Now we also have another witness, another first-person account from Mrs. R.A. Reed. This is in her November 23rd affidavit. I work for the Texas School Book Depository. I've worked for them for 7 years. Yesterday, November 22nd, 1963, I was working. We took our lunch period from 12 to 1 p.m. I went outside to watch the parade go by. I was standing on the front steps of our building. As the parade drew near, I walked closer to the street. Just after the president passed, I heard 3 shots. The first thing I thought was if someone was shooting the president. I remarked to Mr. Campbell, who was standing nearby, that I thought the shots had come from our building. But I heard someone else say, no, I think it was further down the street. I went back into our building and up to the 2nd floor to our office. Just after I entered the office, I saw one of the men who work in the warehouse come through the back office door. This door is located near the lunchroom and the rear stairway. I did not know this man's name at the time, for he had not worked there long. However, I now know his name to be Lee Oswald. I said to Lee, oh, someone has shot the president. I hope they didn't hit him. Lee mumbled something and walked out of the office. I did not understand what he said, and he had a Coke in his hand. When I saw him, he was dressed in a white t-shirt, and I don't recall his trousers were like. I did not see him anymore after that. So here we have a first-hand account that contradicts the first-floor encounter. Because if what Mrs. Reed says is true, then Oswald was on the 2nd floor when she got up there, and he could not have been encountered by Truly and Baker on the 1st floor. So there are 3 first-hand accounts which contradict the hearsay that the first-floor believers want you to believe too. Now they also like to quote Harry Holmes, the postal inspector, in defense of their first-floor encounter theory. And if we take some of the context in with his account, I think it becomes clear that he's confused. That well, maybe he's not personally confused, but the story he's telling is confused. This is from his Warren Commission testimony. He's talking about he sat in on an interview with Oswald, an interrogation of Oswald on the 24th, and he said that Oswald said when lunchtime came, he was working in one of the upper floors with a Negro. The Negro said, "Come on, and let's eat lunch together." Apparently, both of them having a sack lunch, and he said, "You go ahead, send the elevator back up, and I will come down just as soon as I am finished." And he didn't say what he was doing. There was a commotion outside, which he later rushed downstairs to go out and see what was going on. He didn't say whether he took the stairs down. He didn't say whether he took the elevator down, but he went downstairs, and as he went out the front, it seems as though he did have a Coke with him, or he stopped at the Coke machine, or somebody else was trying to get a Coke. But there was a Coke involved. He mentioned something about a Coke. But a police officer asked him who he was, and just as he started to identify himself, his superintendent came up and said, "He is one of our men," and the policeman said, "Well, you step aside for a bit." And later in his testimony, Mr. Bellin asked, "By the way, where did this policeman stop him when he was coming down the stairs at the book depository on the day of the shooting?" He said it was in the vestibule. He said it was in the vestibule? Or approaching the door to the vestibule. He was just coming, apparently, and I have never been in there myself. Apparently there is 2 sets of doors, and he had come out to this front part. Did he state it was on what floor? 1st floor, the front entrance to the 1st floor. Did he say anything about a Coca-Cola or anything like that? Do you remember? Seems like he said he was drinking a Coca-Cola, standing there by the Coca-Cola machine, drinking a Coca-Cola. Well, Holmes does say he said it was the 1st floor. But he also says he's standing by the Coke machine, which is on the 2nd floor. And if we go to the memorandum that Holmes wrote on December 17th, he says of this same interrogation and this is before his Warren Commission testimony, much closer to the actual saying of the words. When asked as to his whereabouts at the time of the shooting, he stated that when lunchtime came, and he didn't say which floor he was on, he said one of the Negro employees invited him to eat lunch with him, and he stated, you go on down and send the elevator back up, and I will join you in a few minutes. Before he could finish whatever he was doing, he stated, the commotion surrounding the assassination took place, and he went downstairs. A policeman questioned him as to his identification, and his boss stated that he is one of our employees, whereupon the policeman had him step aside momentarily. Following this, he simply walked out the front door of the building. Now, this does not contradict the second floor encounter. He does not say this takes place on the first floor. He says he went on down, and going down from the 5th floor or the 6th floor, wherever he supposedly is, could bring you to the 2nd floor where the encounter did happen. And then after that, he walked out the front door after he went to the 1st floor. So I think what we have from Holmes is a confused story. A story that's not confused on December 17th, but is confused by the time of his Warren Commission testimony months later. Now and if you like hearsay accounts, we also have other hearsay accounts which have Oswald saying that it was on the 2nd floor, the encounter. Mr. Truly, and this is from Captain Fritz, his report, Mr. Truly told me that one of the police officers had stopped this man immediately after the shooting somewhere near the back stairway, so I asked Oswald where he was when the police officer stopped him. He said he was on the 2nd floor drinking a Coca-Cola when the officer came in. And also from the Bookout FBI report, Oswald stated that on November 22, 1963, at the time of the search of the Texas School Book Depository building by Dallas police officers, he was on the 2nd floor of said building, having just purchased a Coca-Cola from the soft drink machine, at which time a police officer came into the room with a pistol drawn and asked him if he worked there. Mr. Truly was present and verified that he was an employee, and the police officer thereafter left the room and continued through the building. Oswald stated that he took this Coke down to the 1st floor and stood around and had lunch in the employees' lunchroom. And a lot of what the first floor believers will argue is based upon the dictionary definition of vestibule, an antechamber, hall, or lobby next to the outer door of a building. That's the word Holmes used, and Holmes said that Oswald said that. And they want to insist on this dictionary definition because it makes them right, that it was the vestibule on the 1st floor. Now, in the left-hand picture here, circled in green, is the vestibule of the building as you go in. And that's where Oswald was supposedly encountered by Truly and Baker, according to the 1st floor believers. But on the 2nd floor, where the encounter actually happened, there is an area, a room, or whatever you'd call it, which is very much like a vestibule, even if it doesn't fit the dictionary definition. It's a space between the stairway area and between the lunchroom. It's a little room that is like a vestibule, even if it doesn't fit the dictionary definition. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that maybe Oswald used the word vestibule and didn't have the exact dictionary definition correct, or that maybe Holmes gave it that, put that word there because he thought Oswald was talking about the vestibule when really it was this room between the stairway and the lunchroom. So I think this 1st floor encounter theory has almost nothing to support it, and it's got plenty to contradict it. I don't think there's any question at all about where this encounter occurred, and that was on the 2nd floor.